Okay, this case was sent in by a doctor wanting me to evaluate the implant crowns, the implant abutment crowns on tooth number 29 and tooth number 30. When you look at a case like this, if we put up the occlusion, you can see that it's a pretty tight space. So on tooth number 29 especially, we're going to have some issues. But the main thing that I want you guys to get out of this video is look what happens when we split tooth number 29. We end up getting a proposal with an abutment that is like this. You've got minimal thickness showing through, you've got the titanium base showing through. This is one of the most common things that I see from people that are beginning with the software. So I just want to go through this and kind of teach you guys how to correct this type of issue that's also common with the software. So we'll go ahead and we'll unsplit this and we'll just take a quick peek at the proposals. So we'll turn off the upper jaw, and the proposals are pretty good, actually very good. He's got everything biogenetically proposed, everything's in occlusion and ready to go. So let's just concentrate on 29. Now when I split that and you saw what the problem was, the main issue is if I go ahead and trim this restoration, you can see that the emergence profile is starting from the tie base going up to the actual clinical crown. You've got a very big step here. You don't have a smooth emergence. And the biggest thing that I can get around to people is that this is not how teeth look. That's the best way to think about it. You want a nice root form, how this emerges nice and smooth from the titanium base up to the clinical crown. So the easiest way to fix this is just by taking your shape circular tool and just start shaping out this area. Okay, you just go around, shape out the area. We'll overdo it a little bit here. I always kind of overdo it, go all the way around. Okay, so you get somewhere in that neighborhood. Then we're going to go ahead, we're going to turn on our smooth tool, and we're going to go ahead and kind of smooth this out. Just go around and smooth it out, and you'll notice right away the difference that we've got. We've got a nice emergence profile coming from the titanium base into that crown. I'm not going to worry all too much about that contact area. Okay, so you look at the difference right there. Now let's go ahead and turn the model back on. Okay. Now you certainly do have to be aware of the tissue in a case like this. But really, the reason we're doing custom abutments is we want to have a nice emergence profile. We want to put pressure on the papilla. So something like this is okay to me. So let's go ahead and after we form that nice emergence, let's go ahead and split the file again. And you'll notice even after creating that fresh, nice emergence profile, we're still having significant problems on the proposal. So the next thing we're going to do is, judging by seeing that, we'll go ahead and we'll unsplit the restoration. Let's go ahead and take a look at the parameters. And when we go down to the bottom layer parameters, we can see that the shoulder width is 800. Now, sometimes that's going to be okay, sometimes not. But when you run into significant titanium base showing through or minimal thickness showing through, we need to go ahead and switch the parameters. So obviously something like this, we can't have a really super deep shoulder because there's just not room. So we'll go ahead, we'll change the shoulder width. We'll start at 400. Now I'm going to look at the minimal thickness. Typically with the minimal thickness, I like to keep them both at 500. So the minimal thickness radial is 500. The minimal thickness occlusal, I'm going to go ahead, turn that on, and switch that to 500 as well. So typically I personally like 500 for my proposals, and once we do that we'll go ahead and hit OK, and then we'll have our new proposal. Okay, so now we have the new proposal. We went ahead, we corrected the emergence profile, we corrected the parameters here, and we'll go ahead and let's resplit the biogeneric crown into the abutment, hit apply. And just off that we have a nicer proposal. It's not perfect by any means. We still have some minimal thickness showing through down here. We still have the titanium base showing through down here. And we probably actually don't have enough room for our Emax restoration here. Now this is actually one of the limitations of the titanium custom abutment software is when the titanium base is showing through. Generally if it's less than 5 millimeters or 5.5 millimeters from the base of the tie base to the occlusion, you're going to have these problems. You still can correct them we go to our scale tool, we clearly need to get more room for our Emax here, so we're going to go ahead and take occlusal, scale hole, go down just to create our Emax thickness here. Now we've got some problems with our minimal thickness still here. Even at 5, this is probably too thin. So we'll hit radial. We're going to click off scale hole, and we're going to actually move this area out. Okay, so we're still running into a little bit of the minimal thickness. Now at this point, you have one or two options. You can kind of bag this system and go to like a glide well tie base and do screw retained, or you can go ahead and take your chances on the minimal thickness here. Your titanium base is going to be showing through, so what you're going to have to do is notice it's showing through right where that screw access hole for the abutment is going to be. So you can go ahead and you can just go ahead and seat this and then just take a burr and manually cut down the titanium base, almost like a virtual reduction coping, so to speak, and that will actually take care of the problem. The last thing you might want to do if you have these minimal thickness issues, you can actually see how close you are simply by just turning on display options, clicking on the restoration, and let's just turn the restoration transparent. Let's go ahead and turn the minimal thickness off and kind of evaluate how much thickness you have for your zirconia. And so I would say, personally, I would probably feel comfortable on a posterior tooth with this amount of zirconia thickness. On an anterior tooth, you might be in a little bit of trouble just simply because you don't want the metal showing through and affecting the restoration color. On a posterior, I think you're okay, so that's what I would do. So I'm not going to go through 30. It's pretty much the same thing. The keys I want to get across are when you run into these bad abutment proposals, generally the number one thing that's going wrong is you don't have correct convex emergence profile. The other thing that's going wrong is your parameters are probably not set correctly, meaning that you probably have a margin thickness that is way too wide, meaning it's going to reduce it too far into the abutment. So go, typically I like 600, but you can go all the way down to 400 and probably be successful. So hopefully that helps you get across some of these difficult cases with the titanium bases.